Mr. Van der Zee. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. It's another beautiful day, and I'm happy to be part of your podcast.
Oh, we are really honored to have you in our podcast today. Thank you very much for jumping in a very short notice, and we appreciate your presence here, knowing you're very busy with your time and you still make time for us. Thank you very much, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Hello, viewers. Today we have a very important personality in our podcast today. He is Mr. Siebe Van der Zee, the CEO and founder of Van der Zee and Associates Incorporated. He is a leader and he is a consultant. And again, he was an honorary consul of the Netherlands for nearly 3 decades. His career spans a global financial institution like Citibank, ING, before finding Van der Zee. He has worked for some large corporations globally, including AT&T, Philips Electronics, Raytheon, as well as luxury brands. He had master's degree in international management School of Business, Thunderbird University, Global Management School. His fluency in multiple languages. Mr. Van der Zee, we can go on and on and on, but let's just say thank you and you're welcome to our podcast today.
I enjoy it. Thank you very much.
So, before we start, usually I ask you to introduce yourself, what you're going to do. But before we start, this is how the podcast is going to go. First of all, we're going to start with your background and the industry trend you're seeing. Then we'll discuss the current challenges and the vision of Van der Zee and Associates for the next 12 months. We'll finally wrap up by exploring any next step if it makes sense.
I like it.
Okay, that's good. So can you just tell us briefly an overview of your career as a consul of the Netherlands for almost 3 decades and all that, and why you are in executive search consulting?
I like the question. It may take me a few hours to explain. No, I won't. I was born and raised in the Netherlands in Europe. And through my parents, I got the opportunity to get my degree in global management at Thunderbird, the school here in Arizona. And it was focused on global communication and doing business around the world. And it was fascinating. Then I had the opportunity to get involved in international corporate banking in Amsterdam, in London, in South America, in different countries, finally in New York, so in 4 different countries. And at some point, I decided to move back to the state of Arizona. And I mentioned that this was a few decades ago because there was no international banking in Arizona. And that was my career. So I had to change my career. And this is something that happens, of course, to a lot of people, that you have more than one career. And I started to focus, for example, on coaching and training. And I was really fascinated by that, a lot of global training and coaching. And then I got asked to help out in HR-related issues, and in particular, about 25 years ago, in so-called retained executive search. And as you know, there is a difference between executive search, staffing, recruiting, and retained executive search. Many people don't know that, and we don't have to get into the details, but with retained executive search, typically we are focused on senior level, and I like to say hard to fill positions. And we are the only firm working on those assignments. We have exclusivity. And as you know, many search firms and staffing firms, and they're good people, they do a good job. They work on a contingency basis if they find the right candidate, et cetera, et cetera. So I like to make it more difficult. So I like to focus on retained search. And indeed, now I can say, wow, our team, our associates, we have done a lot of business, and it's fascinating. And so that's a big part of what we're doing, and I can get into more details, but that's hopefully the answer to your question.
Okay. The next question: What initially drew you to the specialized field of retained executive search?
It's a great question because I have to bring it back to my boss. And my boss was a very nice, likable person, but he was also very direct in his language. And my mindset was, I don't agree with everything he says or the way he does things, but I have to teach myself in a way to stay quiet and listen because he knows what he is doing. And I can safely say, after all those years, and unfortunately, he passed away almost 20 years ago, but I've learned so much from him, and I still carry that with me. When things are tough, because when things are easy, we can all say, hey, it's easy, we did it, enjoy it. But when things are tough in the economy or in people finding a job, one of his comments he made to me on a daily basis, get over it. Now that doesn't sound nice, and that's not a friendly way of talking to people. But I always learned there is such meaning in that, not to get your brain stuck in like, oh gosh, this hasn't worked, and I'm trying that, and that hasn't worked. That's why I still like, with all due respect, get over it, because you gotta keep moving. And so he made a big impact as far as executive search. And even if today in 2026 we're dealing with challenges in the economy, it is not easy for a lot of people also to find jobs. I don't say get over it, don't worry about it. No, I know it's serious, but if I look at so many people, the talent that they have, and sometimes I use the official term, the value proposition that people have, and they may not even realize it sometimes, but I look at that and say, wow, your potential, your future. And in a certain way, I'm jealous because I wish I would be 20 years younger. You know what I mean? But I see that, and it's almost like sports in my mind. I like it, and keep going, don't give up, etc. And well, we have been quite successful with that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. How has your experience across such diverse industry shaped your approach to identifying and placing top executive talent?
Well, I like the question, and it brings me back again to my old boss. And when I started working with him, he showed me a cartoon, and it was a veteran recruiter communicating with a rookie recruiter. Again, a cartoon. And the veteran said to the rookie, it's real simple. You have clients and you have candidates. There's only one thing you need to know. They are both liars. Now, that's not nice, and I'm not suggesting that my clients or my candidates are liars, and recruiters don't have a clean slate as far as how we operate sometimes. But there is something to say that if I talk to candidates, I may not get the whole story, especially in the first conversation. And of course, they tell their story, and hopefully it's a good story. But there's more to it. With my clients, the same. A job description, a document, doesn't always tell the whole story as far as the type of person they are really looking for. That's not described in responsibilities and expectations. It has to click between the hiring person and the candidate. And so I think that's a very important lesson that happens. It applies every single assignment, that I have to learn over time and give it time. And I'm not saying they're bad people, and definitely not that, that they're liars. It's just that term that I got from my boss from the cartoon. Yeah, it's a little rough, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The next question is a master degree in international management from the Thunderbird School of Global Management and fluency in multiple languages must be invaluable. How has this international experience and linguistic skill played a role in your success in executive search, particularly with global clientele?
Yeah, and of course, you have international experience. Born, I believe, in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Right. So I was born in a small country in the Netherlands, and well, I almost want to say you have to learn other languages when you live in Europe, because Germany, our neighbor, is just around the corner. France, it's 5 hours drive from Amsterdam, and by then you've crossed all of Belgium. The United Kingdom is on the west side. So growing up, just normal growing up, you are exposed to foreign cultures and foreign languages. And now this is a let's say an important topic, because I would say culture is formed the way we grow up. What we learn from our parents, family, brothers, sisters, neighbors, friends, teachers, that's what we have in our behavior. And with that, we say, yeah, that's the right culture. We're doing it the right way. But then when you get exposed to other cultures, initially it's like, that's different. Why would they do it that way? Why are they eating this? Or why are they driving the way they're driving in that country? But you learn that it's different, but different doesn't mean better or worse. It's just different. And when I think of cultures very different from where I was born and raised, wow, yes, it's different. And I don't have to pretend to be a person from that country, from that culture, but to have the respect for the fact that people were raised and behave and live a different style than I do, that is important. And with that, I've also applied this for many years. When I talk about these issues, guess what? I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. When I communicate with people in different cultures, I've never been to the country where you were born. If I would go there for the first time, I probably have observations that I say, that's different. Hey, look at that. That's interesting. When I lived in South America, in Uruguay, it became very clear on day one, in the evening, restaurants do not open until 9 o'clock in the evening. Well, around 6 o'clock, I got a little hungry. But of course, I cannot change the country. But I also realized, and this is not just Uruguay, it's in other Latin American countries and other countries in general, that people have dinner at a later time than what I was used to. But after dinner, they would walk around the street, socialize with people. It was wonderful. But I only knew once I lived through that experience. So I'm fascinated about human behavior from a global perspective every day.
Awesome. Yeah, you mentioned your passion for finding and coaching talented executives. What unique methodology or insight do you employ to identify not just qualified candidates, but truly exceptional leaders who align with the company culture and strategic vision?
Yeah, again, a great question and not easy to answer, other than perhaps I think about it, and I've been doing this for so many years and I still really like it. Not many people, as you know, that get involved in recruitment build a career in that. They may do it for a few years and then they want to do something else. In a way, and I cannot compare myself to an artist, believe me, but there is something about it when you're having a conversation or you're interacting with an individual for a certain position where it's your gut feeling that perhaps says he or she could be the right person. Could be, because again, there are many more steps involved.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your own gut feeling is important. That's not a qualifier to say, well, I think it's the best person and therefore my client should hire them. That's not good enough. But you get a feel for, does it work? Does he or she have the qualifications? And for example, is there passion? Does the candidate have passion for the job? Because that's important. It's not just I can do it. No, you really would like to do it. And then the most important is, does it click between the candidate and the hiring person or the hiring team? It could be more than one person, but that is in the end the most important. Of course, qualifications, experience, and all of those things, but between human beings, it has to click well. And that's not something that you can simply learn. You have to have a feeling for that. And yeah, I think that's something that I think many recruiters, use their own thought process about that.
Okay. The next question is, for companies seeking executive talent, what are the most common mistakes they make in the internal recruitment process before turning to a retained search firm like yours?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I have a simple answer for that one. And from the perspective of companies, right?
Yeah.
That's the question, not from the candidate. It's from the company. Well, I think it takes a lot of time. And for example, many senior level executives, they're busy. And if I approach someone, chances are that he or she says, look, not interested. I like where I am. I'm not looking for another job. And of course, you have to make that difference between people who are actively looking and people who are not looking at all, don't have a resume, whatever. So it's a matter of kind of figure out people who are not actively looking, making sure that in our research that we think, even if you are not looking for a new job, based on our research, you could be interested in that job. And it happens frequently that if we reach out to people, initially said, not interested, I like where I am, etc. And then let's say a week later, they come back and say, I've been thinking about this, what you mentioned. And whatever, I talked it over with my spouse, and yes, I like to know more. And I always compare it a little bit to a fishing expedition. You throw out the line and you start, someone start nibbling and you bring them in. It doesn't mean it's the best person. Yeah. And as we both know, only one person gets that job. And we may have 5, maybe narrow it down to 3 finalists going to all the interviews. There's only one person that gets that job. So it's very difficult. And of course, we have to assess very, very carefully, because that's the most important, what our client is thinking of, what they are missing perhaps with some of the candidates. The client is always right, even when they're not. That was again from my boss. But that's, of course, they are the decision maker, and that's critically important.
Okay. So in today's rapidly evolving business landscape, what are the key qualities or characteristics you look for in an executive that indicate they can drive significant impact and adapt to change?
Okay, and I'm gonna use some examples that I learned from other people. So it's not that this is my idea.
Okay.
Energy. And energy doesn't mean, in my description, talking fast, talking loud, but there is something that person wants to do, wants to get done, interest. The second one, another E, is energize. If you are full of energy, and I think, Phoebe, you are, but are you capable, and I'm not interviewing you, you're interviewing me, but are you capable to energize the people that work with you, that work for you? Because it's one thing that wow, you want to get things going, but what about the rest? The third E is an edge. Every person, every individual has something that makes that person unique and different. Every person. Doesn't mean it's the right person for the job, but that edge is something that has to stand out. Measurable results. And we're talking about senior level.
Yeah.
Have you worked in other organizations, perhaps the same size as our client as far as total revenues? Have you managed a number of people, perhaps in line with what the hiring company is looking for? Have you been able to generate, let's say, growth at a certain percentage? So measurable results are extremely important, of course, to make sure that the candidate can do the job. Another element that I feel very important in a management role is empathy. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I know how it's going to be done, et cetera, but we all know when you deal with people, there are issues, and yeah, you may not agree. I mean, say, oh, just don't worry about, or like my boss said, get over it. No, it's, I think, very helpful, very important to have respect for the people in the company. And sometimes that's not always there. But that's a different story for your next recording. No, kidding. And I think also, of course, and I say of course, but it's not always easy to measure in the interview process, integrity. If you find out that that person has done things that you as a hiring person would never accept, then the chances that you hire that person are minimal. And at the same time, if you say, wow, look what he or she has done and you know what they stood for, that may stand out as, wow, that person has really proven him or herself. And that integrity is very important, but it's also difficult to measure.
The human resource and talent acquisition landscape is constantly changing. What emerging trends or challenges do you see impacting executive search in the next 5 years, especially with advancement in AI and technology?
Yeah, well, of course, AI is here. It's not to say it's coming, and we're almost there.
Yeah.
And I can see, of course, the advantage of AI, but I can also see the disadvantage. And we're still, I would say, in an early phase. It's here, no doubt. It will stay and expand, but we're still getting used to it. And I like AI to make things easier, faster, document screening, or even sometimes, I don't do it a lot, but writing a document using AI, I can see the advantage there. But I think, especially right now, maybe if you call me 50 years from now, it may be slightly different, but I don't think AI can make a decision, right? And I'm not the only person that says that. So AI is here. We can use it to our advantage, but we also have to be careful. Not related to recruitment, but I watched a segment on TV where they were helping people in a retirement facility, make them aware of AI and how to apply it and where to be very careful, etc. We're all learning, but it's definitely there. I cannot get my brains into the decision making, because I think that has to come down to the people who have the responsibility for that. But like I said, we've seen this in the economy for so many years. If you can do things faster, easier, and perhaps at a lower cost. So again, when I think of AI and if I think of Gen Z, they are impacted right now quite a bit. I don't underestimate that. Some of the jobs no longer require human beings. And applying for a job, I hear this quite a bit from people, that the hiring organization replies through AI. It's not an individual that you're talking to. You don't have a chance to have a conversation with someone. And perhaps we have to get used to that. And on the other hand, I think from hiring organizations, respect for the individuals that express an interest at whatever level, I think that's important. One thing, if I can add to that briefly, candidates that we work with that do not get the job, I always let them know our door remains open. And if 2 months later you say, oh gosh, now, can you help me with this? Absolutely, because I appreciate the fact that candidates are interested in the positions we're trying to fill. And I don't want to make it sound like, well, that's it, you're out of here. I just, not my brain.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. With your involvement in Consular Corps in Arizona and various leadership councils, you have a unique perspective on economic and global trends. How does this broader insight influence your understanding of talent needs for multinational corporations and high-tech companies?
Yeah, well, of course, I no longer serve as the Honorary Consul. I did that for many years. And it was, I have to say, helpful for me. And I don't want to expand on that a whole lot, but to be able to help Dutch people in trouble and to keep it, of course, confidential. Even if I knew the people and I knew friends of them, no, this is between the Honorary Consul and that individual, etc. And I've had some very extreme situations to deal with, and where people suffered an awful lot. I don't want to get into the details right now, but that was, in a strange way, perhaps very helpful to learn from. The other side, and that's in that sense maybe more significant for this conversation, working with companies, Dutch companies investing in Arizona, Arizona companies investing in the Netherlands. We also have had a long-standing relationship for, again, my native country of the Netherlands. And for example, in the Air Force field, certain equipment that they purchased, fighter pilots that were trained and still are being trained in Arizona. And so it was a whole range from individuals just dealing with personal issues to building relationships and connections between, in this case, the state of Arizona and the country of the Netherlands, and then facilitating opportunities at a more higher level where companies were doing business, or at the government level, buying equipment from U.S. companies.
Awesome. Your focus on quality is a recurring theme. How do you define quality in the context of executive placement? And what measures do you take to ensure long-term success for both the executive and the client company?
Yeah, a lot to that question. But how do I measure success? Well, by my clients and the fact that they are happy with us and perhaps hire us again in the future. So repeat business is I think, the biggest signal of they appreciate what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something, being consistent. And again, I've and I don't want to try to show off, but we give a 1-year guarantee. In other words, if something goes wrong when they hire someone and they pay us, but something goes wrong, whatever it is, it's not defined what it has to be, then we will redo that assignment at no cost.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends that say, you're nuts. Why would you do that? But that's part of the commitment, where they commit to us for that assignment. And I'm happy to say it has hardly ever happened, but I feel good about it. It's not to say, oh gosh, we don't want to. No, I feel good about providing a service. And if for some reason it doesn't work, full year, we will redo it. And I think that creates, hopefully, also a level of trust with our client.
Yeah. Okay. What lesson have you learned about diplomacy and relationship building that have also served you well in executive search profession?
I have many answers. No, one that is very important. Don't judge until you understand.
Yeah.
And it's so simple for us human beings. And I'm not a psychologist, but we people are very quick to judge whether we hear something, we see something, etc. And it is important what I've learned. And for example, in some of the diplomatic issues, sometimes you have to keep your mouth shut because it may create other issues. And I respect that. But I have to admit, in my case, I also have limitations where I keep my mouth shut. And we don't have to get into the details, but it kind of fits with my Dutch roots that we like to speak our minds. And it's not always appreciated. You understand.
I understand.
On the other hand, I feel it was necessary.
Okay. Yeah.
I can see, if I have friends listening to me, I can see them smile because they know what I mean.
Maybe they'll get to hear you later.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you want Van der Zee, an associate to be in the next 6-12 months?
Well, great. I'll let you know at the end. No, right now, in early part of 2026, we're dealing with a lot of uncertainties. And in the international markets, and that's of course important for the work that we do, I hear a lot of companies say, well, let's wait and see, let's hold off for now. That's just the reality. Of course, no one can be blamed for that. So uncertainty is there. Then I have to go back what I said earlier, my old boss who said, get over it. Because I feel, and this is coming from me personally, I'm not sure if everyone on my team feels the same, I feel that they need our services. And yeah, we can say, what about this, what about that? But if you look at companies, of course, senior level positions need to be filled, no matter what. And yes, it may be difficult, but that's when companies hire us. If it's easy, they don't need us. And so the fact that we're dealing with lots of challenges, in a way, makes it clear that's what we're looking for. And so I feel good about that. I also think, because that's another thing that we do, coaching, performance coaching. And this is a time, there's always a time, but this is a good time for people to say, okay, how can I improve my performance in the company without switching jobs? Has nothing to do with recruitment directly, but making sure that you have your best performance when it matters most. That's a key thing. And so that's something that I look at. And for the rest, Phoebe, all the international stuff, and there's so much happening right now that in that sense, that's, Socrates from Greece, 400 before Christ, but he talked about the fact that he is a citizen of the world. And that's what I think of when I talk to you, but when I talk to people in general, that doesn't matter where we're from, we're having a meaningful conversation.
Absolutely. Awesome. So are there any specific KPIs you're tracking to make sure you are in the right direction of where you want to be in 12 months?
Not directly. No, I don't have specific targets. We hope to be consistent. In other words, in line with what we did last year and the year before. But it's sometimes hard to predict. And we're a small firm, so it's not to say, wow, we have offices around the world like some of the big firms do. But I think, and again, that's something that we tell ourselves. What we provide is something that is needed by companies. This is not, we think it's a nice idea and nobody agrees with us. It makes sense. And I think that, I'm promoting myself here, as a small firm, we are very focused on what we're doing. We're not looking at we're looking more at quality than quantity when it comes to the number of clients. And so in that sense, we're set to do well this year. I feel comfortable and I feel optimistic. Yeah. Yeah.
If you had a magic wand to fix just one thing in the Van der Zee and Associates that is holding you back or slowing you down, what will that one thing be?
Well, I think the fact that there are only 24 hours in a day, it's not enough. And it sounds a little strange, but I really feel so much passion for what we're doing, and I like it so much that, and I had a conversation the other day with some friends of mine in Australia, and they said, hey, you know, what did you do during the holidays? I said, I was frustrated because I had to wait. People were celebrating Christmas and New Year, and we were celebrating, of course, but there is something about it that, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So if there's more than 24 hours in the day or more than 7 days in the week, if that works, I like it.
Okay, so what are you trying to say, that you need more time to get things done or to get things going?
I want to be able to do more things, and no, it's look, of course, from a business point of view, I want to make sure we do things right. And like I said before, quality over quantity. It's not to get more and more and more, and you know, we make mistakes, etc. Let's do it right. That's the most important. I hope, and that's more generic, I just hope that we can return to a more normal environment, community, society, economy, and working together. I think that is so important, and doesn't mean we all have to agree, all have the same. No, absolutely not. That's not going to happen. But it's sort of a translation of a Dutch expression. At the end of the day, we all have to go through the same door. And I think that is important when I think of you know, society right now. We have to find common ground. We have to be able to work together and respect people. And that's not something I can simply solve. You understand that? But it is definitely something that I look at and say, wow, I did not expect, you know, that this environment that we have right now, and it's so divided in the United States, that's not what I had expected when I came here 40 years ago. Yeah.
So how do you, I will have to go back to quality because you keep mentioning it. How do you define quality in the context of executive placement, and what measures do you take to ensure that long-term success for both the executive and the client content? Quality now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope it answers the question, because if I look at candidates that we have placed with companies, and then over time, when we are still in touch with those candidates or with the hiring company, and we can see that that individual that they hired is still there and perhaps got promoted, is doing better, moving up. And that has happened so many times. And that, I think, is a good sign. It's not just short term, hey, you got the job and we'll see what happens next year. No, the consistency and on both sides. So I hear from the candidates that they say, wow, and I can think of so many examples when I say it like that. And yeah, I don't want to distract from our conversation, but people said, look, I just want to let you know I moved here and stay in touch. But definitely from our clients, and that is so important. And it's the trust that we have, right? It's most of it is highly confidential, and so in that sense, it's not simply to have a conversation. It has to be done appropriately. And again, I can think of specific examples where maybe someone at a client company made a remark about the candidate, and I thought, don't say it. And it had to do with the way someone was dressed, and it had nothing to do with the process. And that's not appropriate. right? It's just a little quick example. So if the continuation is there, that's for me the proof. And especially if that individual that they hired with our help gets promoted, then I feel that is an indication of the quality, that it's not only a good hire, but there's future. And yeah, so I think that's maybe the best way to explain it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you once again for your time, Mr. Van der Zee. That was very great. Thank you for sharing your insight, and we really appreciate it. Quickly, before we wrap up, how do you feel from your end? Is there anything you want to throw more light on?
Oh, Phoebe, I would like to interview you.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'm ready. Just send me your calendar. I'll pick a day.
I think it's so interesting, and I like what you're doing. And again, that's how we connected. And I hope whatever you share, in this case, this episode, that it's helpful for your audience. And again, that's why we're doing it. As far as I know, you're not going to pay me, etc., etc. This is just to share information.
Yes, I appreciate that.
But I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. We really appreciate it, and we say thank you. And we look forward to having you again. And possibly, I'm open. If you send your calendar, you never know, I'll come to your
There we go.
as well.
And that's how we recruit people.
Yeah. That's it, folks. We can see it was very great talking to Mr. Siebe Van der Zee. His insight is quite invaluable, and I hope we get something out of it. Thank you for listening, and have a great day. Bye-bye.